good weather while still at home. Uh, just to give you a brief introduction of our subject matter and what we are going to discuss today. So, we have CPK amongst us who has worked in R1 RCM. Of course, she is heading comp and engagement currently, and also with Capgemini and ST Media and Luminous in the past. And she has contributed immensely to the thinking in the comp and engagement space from a people strategy perspective. We have Piyush, who has been an entrepreneur himself and now driving the product at Zozode. Amit is an all-rounder, I should say. He is a doctoral scholar in organization behavior, and then he has worked in consulting. He's worked in the business roles, corporate roles, and he's worked with Times of India in the past, Grow Talent, Aon Hewitt. Some of those names are common to both of us, and he has been a major think tank in the people change and strategy perspective. He's done a lot of work in that area, I know, and he's also written a lot of stuff in these areas. So, bringing his research skills to life. I am Lokesh. I come from Cognos. I also work in the area of people and change transformation and HR transformation. We are deeply linked to consulting and academia in terms of research-based solutions to our clients in the HR, engagement, leadership, and change management domains. And yeah, so that's how it is. He just one more thing from Amit. I think he is currently the head of HR and CPO at Amnex Technologies. So that is how our panel looks like today. Very quickly on our topic today, I will not take much of time before we move on to the panel conversation. I think it is very important to note that in these times when we are looking at organizations and some of the conversations we were having in the blue room, it used to be called blue room in earlier days, right? When the panelists gather together in a blue room and have a little bit of a chit chat. So when we are also having our chit chat, I think it is pretty important to note that the way organizations are evolving is quite fast, quite speedy. Strategies evolve almost on a weekly, fortnightly basis, and people's attention is stretched from one direction to the other quite on an hourly basis these days, right? So I mean, there's no stability in terms of what you're trying to focus on, what you're trying to work on. And in such times, how do we make sure that there is something which is central, which unifies the people together and helps guide their effort and attention into a particular direction of work? I think that's our pretty much what we want to discuss today. And just to bring to light, based on my own observation, and I would request later on CPK, Piyush, and Amit to kind of also talk about it, is that the uh, the strategy in itself is something which is always evolving basis the basis the resources and capabilities that one has. So if we try to visualize this maybe very simply in one or two sentences, I would say, and later on, of course, I will ask all our panelists to also give us insights about that. Is that let's visualize organizations like Reliance, which have done exceptionally well in the last 6 8 months in terms of turning themselves towards profitability, towards no debt nils, and then there are other organizations, maybe smaller ones, maybe even bigger ones, which are not able to sustain or live. So, what is it that is common observation? What is it that contributes to strategy? So people always think that strategy is something which is long term, which is 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, but it is actually not so. It is actually bases the resources and capabilities that I possess. So when there is a Reliance which has huge amount of resources and capabilities, it can invest into any direction. And then there is also a hungry man who has to think of the next meal. So strategy is directly correlated to the kind of resources and capabilities I command. However, there is also an aspect of human here. Human is a very, very important aspect. even though I am hungry, and I don't have resources enough for the next meal, my mindset can actually make me build something which is very large. So there's a very important contribution of the human ness, I would say, or human mind in the play of strategy, which is very critical to look at as well. So it's not purely about the resources and capabilities, but it is also about the uh, whole aspect of how we bring together mindsets of people. And that is why, earlier on we were also talking about humanizing the workplace, making sure that everybody is aligned to a certain purpose, and that is how we build workplaces. Now strategy is a very you know in last few decades very abused as a word as well. Almost everything becomes strategy, including the day-to-day execution. So how do we actually distinguish strategy from uh, how do actually we perceive it today? So if you look at, I would define three terms which are very closely related to strategy. One is resilience, the second is adaptability, and third is agility. Resilience is, whether I'm, uh, I don't have resources enough for the next meal, or I am Mukesh Ambani. Uh, Resilience is the power to just stay put, just stay put there, in whichever situation you are in. Like what we are seeing in the line of actual control today, stay put. You might have lesser resources, and strategy as a word actually has taken birth there. So staying put uh, into the situation is something that we need to be conscious about. Second is adaptability. I might have limited resources and capabilities, but how do I quickly realign them to be able to put up a fight? That same example of LSE again goes through. I might have limited resources, capabilities, friendships, you know in form of whatever resources and capabilities I have. I deploy them immediately to so as to get the maximum or optimum outcome of those resources and still be able to stay put, which is the first point, which is resilience. And the third point is agility. Like a cheetah in the forest, or somebody who is hunting. It's agility, a lot of times is very abused again. It's thought to be something which is just a skill. It's not just a skill. It's the ability also to respond. So it's the skill and action which comes together. Now if you look at for example a panther or a lion or a tiger, they have both. They act fast and they have the skill. So these three things are very closely intertwined into the strategy. And the fourth point, which actually binds all of these together, is the attention. How do I create attention in our workforce that they are always staying put to that direction which we are putting in form of the strategy, and bringing adaptability, resilience. For example, in our organizations, very simple example, business development effort with a client, and we may have business development teams. We would see that the salespeople who are resilient, adaptable, and agile, and stay put to that one objective are the ones who succeed in the mid to short term, while things may completely keep changing in the background. So that is where I feel is what we need to discuss more about today, and we will hear more and more from our panelists today in terms of their own real life experiences, and get some more examples on how they have been enabling strategies, how they have been enabling their organizations as also taking decisions both in their careers, in their personal lives, as well as in the organization, to kind of achieve very differentiated outcomes. What have you guys, from the panel perspective, seen as things getting successful or being successful, and what are some of the things that we need to look at as we go along? So, all right, I think that is from me, just as an introduction. Uh, for the uh, uh, audience, unfortunately, we can't have you speaking in, but you can keep on typing your Q&A in the question and answer box here, as well as maybe something on the chat if that is enabled. So my first question is actually to all of you. All of you, meaning all the panelists, and I think this audience would be really liking to know, how have you seen strategies evolve, succeeding, failing, changing? How? the response has been in the last 6 to 8 months? Because this 6 to 8 month block is almost like a case study in everybody's life, right? we once we are through with this entire thing, I'm sure we all of us will be much more insightful and wise, from how to deal with life. So from your experiences, what have you seen in the workforce from an attentional perspective, from a strategy perspective, from a business perspective, from their own anxieties, etc. perspective, which are very important when somebody is linked. So mind game is also a strategy, right? Which we are playing with China right now. So so it's very important to kind of take insights out of this, and all of you have great experiences. If you could share, and I would request you one by one to offer some of your experiences for the benefit of this audience, starting with CPK.
Sure, Lokesh. You have very fairly put what strategy is all about, and what is how as an organization we have to create a culture wherein attention to strategy becomes important, because without people assets, it is very difficult to achieve any outcome, whether it is a strategic outcome or a business outcome. So the term strategy was first used in the era of war, and when it is a question of survival, and if I go back to the age when humans were less mortals, in the Homo sapien age, there was danger outside everywhere. There's a danger to survival, and either at that time also, in whatever limited mental capacity and the maturity the human race had at that time, it still come up with ideas, ideologies, or strategies or tactics for survival, whether it is a predator outside, or it is they have developed a core tribe wherein they feel associations were built. They were feeling comfort and safe in their own tribes, and that's how they build collaboration and collectivism. Say if I am a part of the tribe, it gives me safety, it gives me
Right,
a kind of comfort that I can sleep safely at peace if another tribe member is keep being awake in the night and keeping a watchful eye. So those are also the strategy of survival at that time. Similarly, if we take today, any danger which comes either in the form of a pandemic or economic slowdown, it is a collective mindset of either survival, business continuity, and how you come up with staying put. Either you overpower the enemy, if you have the strength, courage, and if you don't know how to overpower the enemy at that stage. Like for example, if we take the example of current pandemic, it is not known, it came unannounced. Nobody anticipated that this kind of situation can come in, and whether it will go away or a vaccine will be created and back to work, the life will become normal, it is still also unknown.
right,
When enemy is unknown, and then at that time it is important that how as an organization we keep continuing with the business, we keep surviving. uh, and this is purely a people crisis, right? It's not an economic crisis, it's not a and these are byproducts of it, that businesses are suffering, and the main vulnerable is as it is the people asset. They are
yeah,
mentally at distress, they are surveying, they are in confused state of mind, they are not getting maybe loss of jobs. At families also, they have to be a support system, and then as an organization, it's a matter of choice. You
yeah,
take either you take a step wherein you keep the culture intact, you keep the focus towards people intact, right, while building a limited amount of sustainability. Every organization nowadays is facing loss of revenue, cash flow challenges are there, manufacturing companies are facing challenges in supply chain capability. There is damage to employee morale and
right,
motivation.
absolutely,
And if there is a damage to employee organization culture, because in such situation many companies have to take decisions which are anti the erstwhile culture and beliefs the company is having. But if there is now the way the leadership is responding, that becomes important in this scenario.
right,
Either you take choices which are short term fixes. You maybe the choices could be
absolutely,
stop on the increments, reduce the workforce, make the organization lean, do layoffs in masses. But whether it has to be seen, what are the long term impact of these choices that you are taking today. Whether the kind of culture takes long time to get built, but for once it is disrupted, and disruption takes very fast. So it's a matter of choice. If you take long term strategies, also have seen companies who are taking very calculative strategies. For example, you are making the organization lean, right? if i
Yeah.
have if I have a lot of extra weight, right, 10 kgs extra, and I take a it has other positives also. It will help me make lean. It will lose on the fat, and the muscle weight is still intact if I'm exercising. It helps me to create to be agile, more fitter. So either
Yeah.
you decide to be more fitter organization who can take up the challenges in the long run and face such crisis situation, or you just do any hesitation, you start to go on a skip diet. You go on a keto diet, or you do some
Correct.
rash decision, just do on fasting, intermittent fasting, which may have a long term impact on the body.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I get your point. I think it is very, very important a point that you make, Deepika, which is around the variables which have started becoming very unknown and unknowable at times. In fact, lots of them unknowables, and a lot of people have to deal with that. And the ambiguity that we all have become more used to, which earlier was more predictable. I think that's a very, very important point. And when things become ambiguous, mindsets become even more important. And that is where it is very, very important to bring the mindset and attention of people to what they collectively need to drive, and build a purpose behind it, rather than just going along. Piyush, your experiences, anything on what Sipika said? How do you look at, from your perspective? You have set up an organization of your own earlier,
Yeah,
and I'm sure lots of these things you would have dealt with there as well.
yeah. So I think uh, the pandemic situation has drastically changed the overall behavior. But if I talk about a startup context, it has been always same for the startup. The startup has to always survive change strategies because for them every day is a pandemic where things are changing at every runtime. You have cash
Every day
flow.
there is a virus like
Every
Facebook
day
or
there is a virus, yeah, either a competitive or something else.
yeah.
So I would look at a broad category, and I would explain more from a pandemic as well a young company point of view. So whenever you are in this kind of a situation, broadly every change and talk from the Zozo Day perspective, when we're talking to different HRs, talking to the various CX or business leaders, we think, and that's my personal understanding as well, that all the changes that the organizations have done, if you look at it at a broader perspective, it is classified into four uh, verticals. Uh, Organizations are doing strategic transformational changes. Organizations are doing people-centric organization changes. Then some structural changes and some remedial changes. What Sipika talked about, identifying a problem wherein there is a cash flow issue, you see that there is a business impact, you do a remedial change,
Yeah. Yeah.
taking an immediate action. If I talk about strategic changes that on organizations are doing, so organizations are primarily realigning their mission, considering the overall current situation. Organizations, especially in the manufacturing sector, organizations are adopting new digital technologies day in and day out, which helps them to save some cost with through some or the other ways. And when you are adopting to digital technologies, then there is a problem that an organization again has to solve, is primarily training their employees in the new skills. Similarly, for an IT organizations or ITS kind of an organization, they again need to reskill or add new skill set to their employee base to make sure that they are aligned to the overall digital transformation technologies that their customers are demanding for. So these are mostly strategic changes that organizations
Mm.
are doing. Then I look at a people-centric organizational changes, wherein
Mm.
in this kind of situation, when there's a layoff and if you are a startup kind of a culture where there is a cash flow issue, you need to solve, you need to have your strategy on people-centric. So what I've
Right.
seen is uh, if an organization is clearly able to articulate and explain to the employees, wherein they are able to answer two fundamental questions, wherein what is in it for me and what does it mean for me, whenever there is a
Absolutely.
structural changes or a strategy
Mm.
change, If these two questions are answered to the people, then people-centric organization changes are easily being adopted. If you change the strategy, then roles and responsibility needs to be clearly communicated to the employee, which is more people-centric. Structural changes, I see it overlaps with the people-centric changes, and you eliminate, as Shipik also rightly pointed out, you eliminate the role redundancy. You identify that these areas are redundant. Either you remove it completely or reskill or re-employ those people. And then, as I mentioned, remedial changes wherein you have identified a problem, you take an immediate action to it, and you solve the problem. And I think in the last 6 months, the organizations who have taken calculated decision, they have identified a problem, they know where they are going, they know what they want to do, and taken immediate remedial action based on this strategy are the successful
Yeah, yeah,
organization, and those who have not are struggling. So in my opinion, these
absolutely.
are the broadly four categories in which organizations have either failed or succeeded.
Yeah, I think very important. Like what we were discussing, agility is something which is very, very critical in strategy. Strategy, actually, by its very definition, and I think CPK was also pointing to that earlier on, is not some is actually from war times. So strategy actually doesn't actually means that you don't stay stationed on one point. You keep on changing basis how the environment
Mhm.
and ecosystem is changing. So your purpose, your vision may be more fixated, but your strategy keeps on revolving around the realities that you face, and agility and adaptability is super critical. But at the same time, people should be attentive and resilient, while they are attending to the tasks. And I think absolutely what you said in terms of people centricity as well. Amit, from your research and scholarship, as well as from your industry and consulting experiences, what have you seen over the years? We have seen 2008 meltdown as well, and a little bit, because at that time possibly we were working with American organizations, and now, of course, in this time when the whole world is at a pause, what has been your observations and experiences?
Okay. So if I look at my experience of last 9 months, let me start with, let's say, March. So when March was started seeping in and we were looking at pandemic, we had no clarity about what way it's going to take, and we were still discussing in our organizations what should we do. So we are not clear about it. Then suddenly the pandemic hit. There was a complete lockdown. Economic activity stopped, and I think all of us were forced to backtrack, think through it, and so I can share what how we went about it as an organization. So first thing is we saw it as an opportunity. We saw it as an opportunity to make change. Now every day when we work on sort of day-to-day things, the focus is on urgent.
Yeah.
This lockdown actually gave us time to bring back focus on what is important. Right?
Yes.
So we started
Right.
looking at things saying, how can we become more agile? How can we become faster? How can we respond to this change in a much better way? So
Absolutely.
we realigned our org structure. We made a lot of policy changes. We looked at who our customers are and at what level should we engage with them. We focused on building strong communication channels across the organization. We realized that in this period, communication is key. So we reached out to each and every employee across the organization at a very frequent interval to make sure that they are in sync with what is happening. So that's at an operational strategy level. At the top, we were very sure that we are not going to change our vision. We are not going to change our business plans because of it. Let's look at how do we adapt to these changes in a much faster way. So the entire focus on us was on making this strategy work, making the reaching our end goals while changing our strategy, adapting to it every month. It's even when we started reopening our offices about 2 months back, we started doing it in a phased manner. So we first got, let's say, about 5 to 10% people in office. They said, okay, let's wait and watch. Let's get another 5% in office. We also looked at how do we change our culture, right? So in pre-COVID period, we were an organization, and I think most of us were, where we believe that working from office is most effective, right? So
Correct.
we were happy. Uh, all the offices have punching machines, so you want everyone to come in, punch
It was
out.
like a punching machine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And organizations went a step ahead. They started having face recognition softwares. at the entrance to see if this is the guy who's supposed to work with me and he's coming in. I think
Yeah.
if you look at COVID, it has brought in a lot more trust, right? So when you have employees working out of home, you need to build that trust. You need to have that trust that that guy is going to perform. And what is important for it is a major culture change where we need to empower all our managers. So
Very importantly.
this has happened at a very big level. I think decision making has moved much closer to the ground, to the people who are finally implementing it. Managers have been empowered to take day-to-day calls, because uh, when communication is difficult, when you're not sitting across the table, the bureaucratic processes have automatically being cut down. uh, Information is flowing much faster, decision making is becoming much faster, and things are happening in a much faster way, right? So that's a change I see. So while I don't see strategy changing much, I see a lot of changes on ground in the way we implement strategy and the way we are communicating, and change in culture. I think this is what is going to take organizations much ahead. But my biggest fear is that as soon as COVID goes down, let's say 6 months, 1 year down the line, we shouldn't go back into the pre-COVID mode again over a period of time, right? Because that's what our natural instincts are, right? We always
Yeah.
feel safe in groups,
Yeah.
and then
Lowest level of energy. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and organizations built workplaces because they always had information asymmetry. When you have
Hmm.
somebody in front of your eyes, you know that that guy is going to work for 9 hours, right? When that guy is working out of home, you don't know if he's working or is actually playing PUBG or is watching something on Netflix, right? So that trust needs to come into the systems again. I think
Yeah.
that is what is important at this point of time.
Hmm.
Culture needs to align to our strategy, and
Absolutely.
we definitely need those cultural changes. Sure.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's important. That is why I think this must be the corporate which asked government of India to ban PUBG. You know? Yeah. So yeah, I think very very important points. The whole meaning of trust is changing. The whole meaning of agility is changing. I think there is a, and I think and Amit would have done a lot of research in that area. We are in a way becoming like high reliability organizations, wherein everything is fragile, moving fast, like in an air traffic control, or an armed forces unit, or a hospital unit. So many corporates are also kind of gaining those skills which were there in these kind of organizations earlier as well. So I think very importantly, you pointed this out. Now let me ask you, dig deeper into some of these aspects. And um, in terms of when it comes to people strategy, and this question to you, Deepika, uh, in the last 6 8 months, or even before that, of course, it's not that this is a big event, but I'm sure there are many events in the past as well, which you would have seen through in your experiences. The way people are doing their people strategy, the way organizations are doing, or you are doing, or the leaders or managers inside your organization, because also there are always micro strategies, right? So the way you are observing strategy being built up, from particularly from people perspective or people strategy perspective, what changes are you noticing? How are people planning? How are people changing? And what new things people are incorporating into the strategy when it comes to people?
Sure, Lokesh. To answer that question, I'll give a real-time example of my current
Sure.
organization. Um, Argon RCM is purely a US-based healthcare technology company and in ITES sector. And in India, it boasts of having 9,500 plus employees in a captive setup. Uh,
Okay.
so the entire premise on which organization was built was to have an operations run organization. There's no work from home, could never be conceived as a part of the work culture of this company. Uh, and so when the pandemic struck, it was very clearly thought, and very quickly it was being from the global leadership thought that one thing we cannot do away with, we cannot reduce the support, and business continuity has to happen in come what may.
Sure.
Right? And within a span of 1 or 2 days, wherein every all the clients, we have ensured that we got a sign off and approvals to initiate and kick off the work from home process, because this entire setup in India is supporting all the big hospital chains who are providing patient care in the United
Wow.
States. So it cannot stop working. And in fact, we were very sure that we have to build massive capability to continue working. In a matter of 2 3 days, we our operations team, our admin team, CSG team, IT team, they has worked endlessly day in and day out and come up with strategies, brought new dongles, shifted systems to people's homes, and if they are procured new laptops and make sure that everybody has a system to work on. And this has happened within a span of 2 3 days. 80%, 75, 80% of our workforce was capable of working from home in March 28th, 29th, 30, these 2 3 days. From 1st April onwards, we were all 80% working. And in the meantime, there was a lot of pressure and work on the top management side. They were working, reporting status on a day-to-day basis. We build up the tech support systems, because there was a entire thing, punch in, punch out was there, as Amit has rightly pointed out. We were built from that mindset. But technology was leveraged, and we brought in some tech tools to capture productivity, digital attendance in the system. For 1 or 2 months down the line, till the systems were capable, we trusted our employees, and we have paid salaries without any cuts. And in case new joinings were happening, either they are bringing in with their own systems in place, or we are delivering the systems on their to their doorsteps. So a lot of connected strategies, but the one driving principle was that we have to continue working, and we can have to support the hospital chains who are there in US and dependent on this team to work on. And the key things, that the trends that we have seen which supported this, is that we are, instead of working on short-term measures, we started working on expanding capacity. We concluded a big merger acquisition in this pandemic time only, and brought in more thousand workforce in Bangalore. And teams are team members. They are, one other thing is that communication was being worked upon, focus communication, top to down communication, and everything was communicated very clearly. Though as a principle of this organization, communication has always been a forte, but in this time it becomes all the more important to communicate what leadership is thinking, how we are responding to the crisis, and through storytelling, through leadership speaks, through blogs, in every way, and the recent that the young generation can relate to.
Right.
So that is another thing. Second thing, third thing is that we are accelerating the investment on the technology and digital solutions, whether it is productivity management, or it is making everyone accessible to the enabling functions accessible to employees. So there was a project which was anticipated for a year or so, but within weeks' time, Ask HR, like a ticketing system for HR or a on-call system for HR, became live for employees. We strengthened our EWAP processes. We strengthened the support that we can garner to the employees so that they can work from home without any extra effort or extra pressure on their own side. We help them, providing them internet allowances, mobile allowances, and a new gratitude allowance was also given to employees, because it's a token of gratitude. They are managing their own families, their own stresses at their home places, and at the same time they're contributing towards work. And that is still in place for our the majority of the workforce in analysts and professional banks. At the same time, we have shown the trust by not cutting any incremental budgets, by not doing away with promotion, not doing any layoffs. But from a structural level, we are redefining the way the organization structure has to be. From maybe a more reliance on the lateral hiring, we have built a sustainable team for training function, and we are like hire them young and then train and then deploy. So this is the model we are working on, and building the internal funnel pipeline, wherein from a structural and long-term improvement and a capability perspective, we can ensure that we have trained resources who can function and provide business continuity.
Yeah, I think very, very important insights. I think the gratitude and the well-being is central to the strategy as well. Now as we look at people, and I'm glad you have already taken some great measures
And
there.
from a reward standpoint, because health is prime important, well-being is
Yeah,
important. So we have
yeah,
come up with enhanced insurance coverages and top-up option to employees so that their family is covered. Anticipation is there that medical expenses are increasing. So we have
yeah.
launched the top-up in this regard, so that employee can cover
Wonderful,
for the financial
wonderful.
expenses, unforeseen financial expenses in the long run.
On a lighter note, on the issue of dongle, there is a direct correlation with engagement, whether it's an Airtel or a Jio.
That's
So you
there.
can direct
That's
that
there. So
you can
it's
directly
actually
see.
agile, and if you have your own network, you can go with that. So flexibility is required.
Okay, moving to Amit. So in your experiences, both putting together all the research consulting and corporate experience you have, your experiences in strategy creation, building attention, and providing people with direction, implementation of strategies, what have you observed?
Sure. Now, if you look at it, strategy cannot exist in vacuum. So strategy needs to emerge from your overall vision, from your purpose. And if you look at any successful organization across the globe, I don't think anyone without having a clarity in terms of vision or purpose has succeeded ever.
Yeah,
There, there,
absolutely.
there are there are very few companies who would have just started working without a vision or purpose and would have succeeded. There will be very, very rare instances, right? So first is in this pandemic as well, we need to look at, reevaluate what is our vision, what is our purpose. And I don't think purpose for a lot of organizations should change. Vision may change, right? So they may need to look at the goals that we have set for next 4 to 5 years. Are they still realistic? Are they changing? Has my industry being disrupted? Do we need to look at newer solutions? Can we find solutions that are more aligned to the current situation? So to some extent, the vision may change. Now, when we are talking about strategy and its execution, I think 3-4 points are very critical. First is commitment to your strategy, right? And that's somewhere I think you need to be slightly inflexible. I'll give you 2 examples. So in 1536, when Hernan Cortes, that is a Spanish name. So he was a Spanish conqueror who landed on Gulf of Mexico. And as soon as he landed there, he announced that Mexico is now part of Spain. He declared himself as the governor, and he burned down all the ships that they had used. Now, it's a very foolish thing to think about, right? You have just landed on a coast, you don't know anybody there, and you burn down all your ships. But that also meant that his choices of going back have vanished suddenly, right? Now he needs to fight and he needs to succeed whatever happens. And it gave so much energy to his soldiers who knew the only way back home is by winning this war, conquering entire Mexico and making it a Spanish colony. Only then they can get reinforcements back from Spain. Right? So sometimes commitment to your strategy is very critical. You look at an organization like Apple, right? Apple decided long back they're going to make only closed loop systems, right? So you can't tinker with their software. If you want to have your game on an Apple platform, you need to give it to them. They will define the platform for you. It is close ended. You can't make any changes to it. See how brilliantly it works, right?
Absolutely.
It has made a legion of Apple supporters, followers who will use only those kind of products. Right? So commitment to your strategy. If your strategy keeps changing every few days, then you may be in trouble, right? Because beyond a point, in psychology, there's a term called decision fatigue. So if you have too many choices every day, for example, when you're at home, right, and typically you will be cooking as well. So if you cook 20 meals every day, let's say 20 options in lunch or dinner, your family will go mad saying that should I eat this, should I eat that? That is why I think it is simpler to have maybe 2-3 dishes where everyone can enjoy those two, 3 dishes. It's possible, right? If you have 30 different things in every meal, you will go mad every day deciding what should I eat, right? So decision fatigue shouldn't happen beyond a point. You need to be committed to your strategy. Second is flexibility. So when I say uh, let's assume a plane has taken off from Mumbai to go to Delhi. Now, how many times or what percentage of travel time do you think it sticks to the flight path? 80% of time?
50%.
How many? How about?
50% of the time would be flying time. Rest is all landing and
No,
taking
no.
off, etc.
So what percentage of time does it stick to its defined flight path?
100% of the time.
Actually 0% of time. So every second and 1,000 times every second, autopilot measures how far it is from the flight path and brings it back to the flight path. Right. So once your strategy is there, you're committed to your strategy, you need to review and monitor yourself every minute, every day, every month, so that you know how far you are from your flight path.
Absolutely.
And then you need to make corrections to make sure that you are still on your flight path. So it shouldn't happen that you have flown from, you have started from Mumbai to go to Delhi and you have reached Ahmedabad, right? So that shouldn't happen. You need to be on your flight path. So review and monitoring becomes very critical. Third thing, which I think is very critical, is black box thinking. Now, if you look at all the aircrafts, they have a black box in the cockpit. Now, in case of accidents, they always go through in detailed study of black box to understand what were the conversations at the last moment, how did the pilots think or react, what were their reactions, how did they act, what was their strategy, right? Similarly, in our day-to-day life, when we are taking decisions, even in organizations, we should write down our assumptions. Otherwise, our minds are very biased. So in case of failure, we will always find a reason to blame something. In case of success, we'll attribute it wrongly to ourselves. It is very important to use black box thinking to write down what is happening in day-to-day life, what assumptions we are making, what is the ground strategy for those decisions, and then you can reflect after your success or failure to see where did I go wrong or where did I go right. If we use that kind of strategy over a period of time,
Absolutely.
we can make changes more frequently. We will make informed decisions, right? And finally, when it comes to application of strategy, mindset is the most critical thing, right? Every strategy looks very good in form of a PDF or a Word doc or PPT, but it may not happen till the time we change mindsets of the people who are going to implement that strategy, right? And here communication becomes very, very important, right? So those are a few bits from my side. Sure.
Absolutely. No, I think very, very important insights. I think that is where the corporate is also learning from the high reliability organizations like air traffic control or hospital or things like that. And also very important that we keep the flight path. Absolutely, well said. Yeah. Uh, Coming to Piyush, I think you would be able to throw a lot of of course. Amit spoke about continuous communication. I'm sure you would be able to tell us a lot about communication and how to keep people engaged to strategy, how to keep people engaged to the implementation of the strategy.
So I think Amit rightly summed up that it is important that you stick to your strategy, commit to your strategy. I think once this phase has been done in any organization, then for a successful strategy execution, everything boils down to employees. So execution and employees go bit hand in hand. And I think that's the point wherein the employee engagement or the engagement bit comes into the picture. Uh, uh, Let me take a step back, and when it comes to engagement, let's clear some terms or philosophies that people have related to employee engagement. Many people, while we talk to many HRs across the organization, not only in India but overseas, we see that majority of the leadership or the HRs also sees employee engagement just doing some fun activities or celebrating some festival or cutting cakes on the birthdays on every Friday. And most of the organization or the HR sees that this is what is all employee engagement is all about. But that's not really the case. So I will deep dive what actually means an employee engagement. So according to what I think is employee engagement is if an employee is committed to the work that he's doing, if he's emotionally attached to the work, that is a true employee engagement, because if an employee is attached to his work, he will deliver the business goals. Is aligned to what an organization needs to get out of the employee, or where the organization need help from the employee. So broadly, employee engagement we classify should be classified under four pillars. One of the primarily pillars that Amit also mentioned is the communication or the collaboration. Second comes the motivation, then the empowerment and alignment. And for a successful strategy execution, all of these four pillars, which is communication or collaboration, motivation, empowerment, and alignment, is important. And why I say so? So there are various research which has shown that approximately 90 to 95% of the employees in the organization are not clear about the organization strategy overall. So it is important that each and every employee in the organization is clear about this strategy. Strategy needs to be breakdown on what it means to you. And I should, as an employee, I should be informed that, hey, you are doing this particular task, work, or job because this work aligns to this overall strategy where we want to go as an organization, which creates a meaningful difference and which makes sure that each and every employee in the organization is communicated in a right manner. Once the second pillar is the motivation pillar. uh, Employee knows about that what I am doing, why I am doing, but it is important that an employee is motivated to work on the task, job, whatever he has been given. It is important for the organization to make sure that the intrinsic and the extrinsic motivation factors are being taken care of when it comes to the execution of the strategy or execution of the work that has been allocated to an employee. And that's where the motivation plays a real uh, factor. Then comes the alignment. As I said, that it is important that the entire strategy needs to be break down in such a way that each and every person in the organization knows that why I'm doing what I am doing, and it is why it is aligned to the overall strategy. That's where, in an employee engagement perspective, alignment plays a bigger and a critical role. And if we see the overall models that have been emerging, startups are day in and day out focusing and changing on the OKRs kind of a model, wherein the objectives are clearly defined, and the objectives are defined based on the overall strategy of the organization. And hence, this is the place where the alignment bit of an employee engagement comes into the picture. And the last and one of the most important factor is an empowerment, wherein you empower the employees. You do various kind of surveys. Pulse survey is a classic case where organizations are now adapting uh, this kind of a methodology, wherein every quarter you conduct pulse survey, you get what employees are feeling in the organization, and you also give a tool or a mean for an employee to raise his voice. If if an employee has been tasked with uh, a particular kind of a work, and if that doesn't align with an overall strategy of an organization, then organization should provide tools or a feedback mechanism wherein the employee can raise voice and ask the right question. Why I'm doing this if it is not aligned to the overall strategy of the organization? And that's where the empowerment bit comes into the picture, and
Absolutely.
it plays a critical role. I think, to sum up, for a successful execution of a strategy, an engaged employee is the real need of an hour. And for an engaged employee, motivation, alignment, empowerment, and communication makes a combination of this helps an employee to be engaged and a strategy to be successfully executed in an organization.
Yeah, sure. I think that's very insightful. I think let us move to some of the Q&A we might be having from the audience. I think one question which I see, what do you think the post-COVID, the working days from the office going to look like as people have become more habitual to work from home? So how do people return to work? Your takes, each one of you.
That's a very valid question, and there is an apprehension around it. Is work from home going to survive for long term? Is it going to be the go-to strategy going forward? My 2 cents and my take on that will be that it is definitely going to bring in a fundamental shift from the way the organizations used to think. Uh, right now we are seeing possibilities. We are seeing possibilities that talent can stay in their native places, in B towns, C towns, and still contribute to the effective workforce, and there is no need for, we are seeing reverse transition. We are seeing mass exodus from costly rental accommodations. People are going back, leaving their accommodations. Even organizations are leasing out their spaces for the time being, and if wherever in nooks and corners possible. And this is in the developed economy side. We already had a working model wherein if your family needs are require you to work partially, there was a workforce model available wherein you can work partially, weekly, or on an hourly basis. But in India, it was a fair ask. We cannot think of any organization who can, either it has to be contract work, or it has to be full-time work. There's no midway. But then this kind of shift, a strategic shift, or will bring in more the workforce models, and the way the organizations will be adaptive towards workforce, and give this flexibility that flexi working hours are possible. There's flexible work arrangements like US would be possible in India. And if you want to work from home, and maybe for meetings, for conferences wherein in-person interaction required, then the teams can meet. Otherwise, virtual is working
Absolutely.
good. So that could be one way of thinking. Any forward-looking organizations, and there are organizations who are adapting to that as well.
Sure. Okay. I have a slightly different take here. So in physics, there is a theory called punctuated equilibrium theory. Now, every system, once it's given a change, will strive over a period of time to achieve a new normal, right? So we had a normal, we were disrupted. So work from home is becoming new normal. Uh, will it sustain over a period of time? I really doubt. So what's going to happen is companies will find balance between work from home and work from office, right? So over a period of time, they'll identify some roles that they think can work out of home, let's say 2 days, 3 days a week, but they will still want to have people at least 2-3 days in a week in office. Similarly, there are some roles where I think work from home will not be possible. So they are not going to move. In the post-COVID period, they will go back to office. I think others, there will be a mix of work from home and work from office. But can we say that work from home can become 100% possible post-COVID? I don't think that can happen. So
it's a far cry.
yeah, and employment models may evolve. So gig economy work would increase. I think people who want to take a break from their careers, work out of home, they will have more opportunities. But if you look at in around 2007-8, when Yahoo had a new CEO, I think it was Carly Fiona or something like that, and she had disbanded work from home completely from Yahoo. The main challenge was Yahoo had a very flexible work from home where everyone stopped coming to office, which impacted collaboration, which impacted their ability to work together as a team. So organizations have that experience in mind as well. They have burned their hands once. So they will want all teams to come to office at least once or twice, work with each other, so that collaboration and teamwork remains. So that's my take there.
Yeah. Piyush, anything from you?
Yeah, so I think my take is similar to what Amit has mentioned, that it would be a hybrid model where it is, if you look from the organization perspective, also work from home makes sense because you spend less money on the rental and all over the system. But at the same time, it helps you to hire a talent from any place across the globe. So that is from the organization perspective, and from the employee perspective also, I think it would be really helpful. And I have reasons for it. I think if I typically consider IT and ITS sector, most of the people are working in metros like Pune, Bangalore, Mumbai, which people come from a small town. So this employees will get more and more opportunity to stay at their native and work, and they can travel, I think, once in a month for 2 to 3 days and collaborate and get their job done. So I think it is going to be a hybrid model, and people who are working from the native places, from a tier 2, tier 3 towns, in this kind of a model, they would be also okay to take lesser salary because they have lesser experience. So hence, I think this is going to be a hybrid model. There is no straightforward answer to it. I think every organization will adapt based on their employees' requirements.
Also, depending on the organization, like if it's a manufacturing, you cannot manufacture unless
Right,
people
absolutely.
So it also
What do you
depends
think?
on the consulting setup. Then
Yeah.
possibly, virtual consulting can happen. So it
Yeah.
also depends on what is the area in which you're working on, and how the organizations are able to be productive while offering flexible working arrangements, and how
Yeah.
they balance it out. You know.
Okay. So one more question for our audience, and then we close. What do you think of the performance management system? Any one of you?
It is definitely going to change. I think the focus will shift a lot more to end results finally. See, what happens is when
Hmm.
you're in office, uh, people observe it from multiple lenses. How are you behaving? How are you communicating? Are you collaborating with your team? How much efforts have you put in? I think with work from home being the main focus, companies are likely to look at what is the end result. So I've given you a task. Are you able to do it or not? And is the quality good or
Correct.
not?
Yeah.
Right?
Gig
So
kind of working. Yeah.
yes,
Absolutely.
so that's going to happen.
Okay. So I think we are closure of the day. We are almost done. Piyush, over to you for any closure remarks.
I think thanks all the panelists in attendance for joining this session. I think with the depth of knowledge from Sipika, Amit, and Lokeshu, I think we were able to touch base upon starting from the history or the starting of why strategy is important, from where it got conceptualized to coming to the organization and explaining on the various aspects of it. I think it was an insightful section from Amit and Deepika. Thanks for joining us and thanks for giving us the time on Sunday morning. And thanks to our all attendees for joining and bearing us. I hope that this session was fruitful to you in some or the other way. Thanks all of you for joining. And yeah, but last not the least, thanks Ibrahim and Priya for hosting this wonderful webinar for all
Yeah.
of us.
Thanks to all of you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank
It was
you.
indeed great having you.
Yeah,
Let's catch
thank
up
you.
on
Thank
phone again on some of the back blue room conversations again.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. See you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you. Yeah,
Have
bye.
a great weekend. Stay safe.